by Crown. It's black and white color. Hello. Sometimes with upcycling, it can be tricky to add texture or dimension to a garment. So I want to show you one of my favorite easy, quick techniques. I'm sure it has a proper name like quilting something or another, but I call it puff embroidery, and you can do whatever shape you want. I'm going to do a flower today. Let's take a look at the ingredients. A garment of your choice, some thread, some pins. Let me get that in the center. A stencil of your choice, something to mark with on the facing, an iron, some fusible interfacing, some batting, and scissors. Here is the top I will be not utilizing. I will be utilizing. Okay, here is the top that I will be working with today. It's kind of vintagey, so part of me is like, maybe I shouldn't mess with it, but yeah, I am. The stencil that I've made, and obviously you can make whatever shape you want. I'm going with the simple flower. Actually, I did tweak it a little bit. So here was my stencil, so you understand what a stencil looks like, as we all do. I did cheat and make it already in advance. But do whatever shape you like. This is fusible interfacing, and it's kind of a medium weight. And you can buy this at the fabric store, and it's got like little dots of glue on one side. So make sure when you're ironing, do not put the iron on this, put it on this side. So we will be drawing the stencil on the smooth side. I'm using, if there's any ink left in it, a fabric marker. You could also use a pencil or tailor's chalk. You could technically use a pen, but just remember that it will like potentially be like ironed, and like if you wash the top, it'll like might leak onto the fabric. So just something to keep in mind. But let's see if there's any ink in this. I know one side sort of disappears immediately, and it might be, well, we'll see. And I will be obviously tracing along the outside of this one, but then when I cut it, I'll be leaving a little extra. So don't just put it right up to the edge. Yeah, get a little juice. It might, see, I feel like it's already disappearing. Let's try this end. Nope, that's worse. I think the theory is that this can wash away. I'm going to show this because I'm like, well, I confess. I'm prepared to, I'm using this one, but I need to show like this is how it goes. Or you can, if this is like, you can always just like, oh, I don't put that. Okay, well, it's disappearing before our eyes. Like the picture, like it was Marty McFly, Back to the Future, it's disappearing. Okay. Then I'll be cutting around the edge of it about 1/4 of an inch or so. This is batting. You can usually find this in fabric stores at the back, like the spooky cobweb section. You know what I mean? That's like weird dark corner of the fabric store. I'm so rusty. This is like a big flop. Okay. Here is the, here's what puts the puff and puff embroidery. Okay. Here is some batting. Batting? Batting. Jesus. God, I need a drink. It's like noon. Okay. This is batting, usually found in big bales at the back of fabric stores. It's usually used for quilting. And I got the thickest one. I think it's about 1 inch thick. And we'll just need a little bit of it, but it is pretty crucial to this puff embroidery. So really, I'm just going to sort of cut a shape that's about flush. Now I'm going to iron the stencil that's on the facing onto the batting. So just obviously make sure the sticky side is down. And if you hear this clicking throughout the video, this iron makes that sound. I don't know, it could be a haunting, I don't know. Also, let's do a little iron talk. I got this from Wawak, WAWAK.com. And it is lovely. I think the brand literally might be called, I don't know if it's Hot Steam or like Hoot Steam or something. Hoot, because they don't know a lot. It's called a gravity feed iron. Let's just say SGB 900. I don't know anything about irons. I just know that like this one has a tank, a water tank there. So it has some nice steam. It's a little, you kind of have to be tethered like, and have the tank upright. You know, so some of it is a little precarious, but really good steam. Well, more in the moment. It's not a show off. But it has this thing where not only does it make that weird clicking sound, but it also will do this, it'll slide, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's not like top heavy, it's like, I don't know what, it's just off balance or something, and it will just fall off. And so that's why it looks like, you can see the guts of it, like the innards and these sharp edges. And in theory, you can get new parts, like this part, and you have to unscrew stuff. And I was like, I don't want to, sorry, I'm really getting into the nitty gritty of this, but I've got beef. And I'm like, I don't have to take off all this stuff and like replace it for $50. I'm like, I'll just have shards of plastic. Thank you very much. And wires, and it's probably not safe. So, but I do like the iron, and it's, I don't know, like $110 or something. And I was going to show you the other iron. I haven't used it a ton because I've already got this one going, but it's sort of my backup. And I don't know if that's like Oliso? I don't know. Yeah. And so yeah, I've got this as a backup. It works pretty well too, but it does have this thing where it like pops up on its own. It kind of just, which is good. So that way you can just leave it down, like facing down. So it can be tricky because it kind of pops. I'm still not used to the dance of like, it just will pop up sometimes when you're like, oh, I'm actually ironing now. I don't want it to you know, to hover yet. Anyway, but these are two that I recommend with some caveats. And that one is more expensive, but it is nice that, and you'd have to refill it. It doesn't have the tank, but you're not as tethered to the wall. Anyway, iron talk over, fascinating. All that for this, basically. Here we go. Gonna iron. Take 2 seconds. And then maybe a little bit on the other side. That looks good. All right. And that will still click throughout the video. I might trim a little bit more away now. And I could also, because the thing is, once this is sewn, you can trim away at it, but it does get trickier. Like, I might even want to get closer to the edge, but then when I'm sewing, I don't want to kind of fall off into a ditch. So anyway, sorry, it's just, oh wait, I need to shut up probably. Now to figure out the placement, I will be putting it in the center front of this top, and something to consider because it will be, we'll be stitching along we'll be tracing along these lines. So it will actually be fluffy side against the garment. We'll be sewing it from the other side, if that makes sense, from the inside of the garment. But make sure your facing is kind of smooth, because assuming you're doing maybe a knit top that, you know, might be a little snug, this part will be against your skin. So if you want to put like another piece of fabric over it, or get a facing, an inner facing that isn't too scratchy. So I think I'm actually going to try on this garment just to make sure the placement's right. I'm sure I'll get letters about, I can't believe you would defile a piece of true vintage. So I'm trying to figure out, and of course it'll be, let's see, flipped. I'm trying to think, because that's another thing to consider if you do like lettering, is that it will need to be backwards, right? I'm so bad about this. Like, I was like, so if you do the word like I don't know. What's the word? I can't think of anything creative.
I was just thinking of dirty words.
I know. I'm like, I can't think of a single mom. Well, that's easy.
That doesn't work.
Are you trying to sabotage me? Are you really fool? How about like blouse? I don't know. It's a great word.
Just label it.
Just like, that's what I'm wearing. It's very meta. So say you're doing the word blouse, you know, on your blouse. Just remember that it will need to be the B. So like, it'll need to be like from right to left. You know what I'm saying? Because that way when you flip, just something to keep in mind. If you're doing something that's any kind of direction or spelling involved or whatever. But luckily with the flower, you almost can't mess up. I'm just trying to think of like, I think I want this one to be at the top. Okay. Yeah, I think I want it to be right about here. And it's going to try it on because that way, what if I'd like, oh, it's here. And it's like, well, that doesn't look right. Okay. So I might just pin, you'd either pin it, I guess, in place or just kind of put a couple of pins. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this. This is just how I do it. Because like if I pin it from the inside, it looks like nonsense. Okay. So just kind of getting the edges, the zone. And of course I'm going to pin one to my t-shirt. We know this already. That's how it goes. Okay. Just again, well, that's way off. Okay. Wow. Well, anyway, I got the idea. I have now flipped the top inside out. So this is the front butt from the inside, and you can see the pins, sort of a guide. And again, we'll be sewing along these lines. And so you'll want the traced facing bit, top side. And we get the pins. And obviously I'll be taking those pins out in a second, but. I don't know if I mentioned, but I also, with this flower, I put a little circle because I could just do it like as is with just the outside lines, but I thought it needed just a little more texture. And so I'm doing this little circle on the inside just to kind of give it a little more dimensionality. Is that a word? Yeah, well, we'll see.
Comments can tell.
Yeah. Okay, taking the pins out from the front. And let me just check to make sure that nothing got puckered from the front side. So it looks pretty good. Something to sort of check as you're sewing as well, maybe just to make sure nothing kind of gets, it likes to do this thing where, you know, kind of, I don't know, has a life of its own. All right. And we're ready to sew. It's like I'm trying to read my writing, except I'm trying to like see like which line? It's kind of like Here's the final look. Super cute. And you can use this technique on the front of a sweater, the back of a trench coat. You could do several of them as a sort of like all over print, like on a dress or something. If you're adding maybe a color block patch pocket to something as an upcycle, you could add it to that. So many different options. Definitely one for the books. Gone, you good thing. I call it puff embroidery, and you can add it to just about any garment, and I'm like weeping. I was like spinning around. Spin for me. What's that thing called where it's like shredded up? There's a word for it. It's like gray and it's like shredded up. Who cares? There's a word for it.
It's like stuffing?
It's like called like gnat.
No idea.
Cut all of this. This is nothing. Our bit that everyone loves. Crowd favorite.
People demand it.
Yeah. Hey. Hi. Hello. Oh fuck. Oh my god, I totally would have forgotten that.